This is Climate Justice, Y'all, a podcast dedicated to lifting up and centering the climate and environmental justice movement in the South. Despite the South being the most biodiverse, diverse, and one of the largest economic engines in the world, we are underfunded and often barred from the decision-making table. Because of that, we decided to pull up a chair and amplify the stories of communities in the South hit the hardest by the climate crisis.
We're using good old-fashioned storytelling to shine a spotlight on these Southern leaders from all walks of life, putting in their blood, sweat, and tears to transform the region. The usage of y'all in the title is on purpose. We are honoring our Southern heritage of creativity, resilience, and ingenuity.
All right, y'all, it is season 2 of Climate Justice, Y'all. Let's get started.
Hey, y'all. I'm your host, Teresa Malcolm, and I'm joined by the fabulous Abigail Franks. Puerto Rico has already been seeing the devastating impacts of climate crisis for years, with a prime example being Hurricane Maria in 2017, followed by Hurricane Irma just a couple of weeks later. Since then, Puerto Ricans have been working on the ground to adapt against extreme weather and are even reimagining the roles of healers and medical personnel. We have a lot to learn from them. Today, we are bringing in climate activist and resiliency expert Teresa Ramos, who is fighting to make Puerto Rico resilient against the climate crisis.
Climate justice, y'all. It's real, it's here, and it's about time we listen to healers and activists like Teresa Ramos. All right, let's get started with the show. All right, hola, y'all. Hola, it's Abigail and Marisha and Nicole, and we're here to talk today about disaster resilience.
All right. If you will, Nicole, just go ahead, introduce yourself, your organization, and where you're located.
Hey, y'all. Hola a todos, and thank you again for having me. I'm Nicole Teresa Ramos. They, she pronouns. I am regional organizer with Taproot Earth and Gulf South for a Green New Deal. I am located in Isabela, Puerto Rico, which is on the northwest of our biggest island. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah, and that doesn't even begin to cover like all the amazing work that Nicole does. The more I learn about them, the more honored I am to share a space with them. So thank you so much for making time out of your busy schedule for us to talk about disaster resilience and disaster recovery, because we have a lot to learn from Puerto Rico in general. And well, I say we, the South, but also United States in general. Like, we got a lot to learn about what to do as disasters continue to not only become more severe, but, increase in the number of them per year. We talked about previously with Michael Esaluca about how disasters, there was like several multi-billion dollar disasters in 2021, and I'm not looking forward to 2022. So let's ground ourselves. And if it's okay with you, could you talk about Hurricane Maria? What was it like? How did it impact Puerto Rico? Because I feel like Hurricane Maria, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that is kind of a major, not a starting point because climate change has been happening for a while, but definitely it got everyone's attention when it comes to how unprepared we are for this. But what was it like for you? Because you've lived in Puerto Rico all your life.
Yeah, definitely we are still healing about it. We had 2 weeks before Hurricane Irma, but Hurricane Irma just hit very badly the east side. And the job I had at that moment, I was in the most tourist area in Old San Juan. I used to work be manager and assistant in a store that makes bags in the only manufacturing co-op that we have in the country. So I was very proud and very happy to be there. The thing is that we closed with Hurricane Irma, which was 2 weeks before Hurricane Maria. So our, money-wise, already I was in a big hole. The thing is that when we did not expect it at all, Hurricane Maria, and because it was so fast, many of us didn't have the resources or the time to actually get more groceries and get groceries or prepare better, because let's say we use our money to prepare for Hurricane Irma, and people like me, we were out of job after it. So it was really hard to get enough groceries for Hurricane Maria. And still, even the ones we got, they were not enough. Like, they were not enough at all, because we did not expect the huge huge hurricane that Hurricane Maria became. And it felt, even though they said it entered our area on September 19 and our 20th, there's like debates even, but it felt like a 3-day hurricane because it was more than 21 hours on top of us. But then the aftermath, that the biggest part left the country, but then the aftermath felt like a whole another day, and we were not sure if we were safe to get outside because communications, electricity grid failed 100%. Like no one had electricity, and communications just went off completely. And
how long were y'all out of communications and stuff and out of power? Because that sounds really scary. And I mean, it seems like with y'all preparing for groceries and stuff, that hurricanes was something that y'all have dealt with in the past. And so this seems like a whole new beast.
Yes, depending on what area were you from, that's how long you were without electricity. Some of us, I was living in the city, but in a very impoverished hood. So, but we got electricity like 4 months later, which was 3 months later, which was lucky. But in San Juan, in the capital city, other areas of privileged people did got electricity quickly. And people like my sisters and my moms that live outside of the metropolitan area, they live in rural areas. My sister, she was 1 year without electricity. So, yeah, and last, there were people who reported even being 2 years without access to electricity. So it was just insane. And it was just crazy around that. And that's why so many people died. And so many people had health complications and health issues. And we still don't know the final number of how many people died because the government never, either the state or federal government never agreed to actually make a good research. There's only one, there's one government research that was very vague, and they say that only 200 persons died. But then another university from the US, I just forgot the name, but I will get it to you. They made a research by themselves, and they found out that our death toll is between 4,000 persons till 10,000 persons. They weren't even able to actually get a real number. That's just statistics that they choose, like the most probable number is between 4,000 and 5,000 persons that died after the hurricane. But even with that research that was made independently, the government said, no, we're not doing an official research. That already happened. It doesn't matter. So
Wait,
we actually don't know.
Hold on, Nicole. I'm sorry. The government said that they wanted to just stop researching on the aftermaths because it already happened?
Yes.
What?
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
and actually, this year, in 2022, 5 years after, the government finally got the money from FEMA to fix public schools around Hurricane Maria. And it's like 5 years later. So yeah, that's how it is.
So 5 years later, does there feel like any normalcy, like even just within your life, does it feel like there's any normalcy brought back?
Yes, but because I moved, I have moved a lot in my life, like I don't know how many times. Like I say here, I'm a daughter of displacement because I've been displaced so much. Because I come from very poor family, impoverished family. The thing is that because where I live right now, it's a safe house, it's a cement house. So I feel safer. So it feels like some type of getting back to normal. But streets are still very bad, and electricity grid is still really bad. And then it's been privatized. It was sold to another company called Luma, Luma, and it's been worse since they have been owners of our electricity grid. So there's some type of, we kind of more or less we have some, it's more normal, to be around, and everyone is, in back to their lives. But you will hear in any conversation you have with anyone, like for real, at one moment, someone is going to say, before the Hurricane Maria, this and that and la la la, or I remember Hurricane Maria when this or that happened to me, and then all of a sudden we are talking again about Hurricane Maria. It's a constant conversation, even 5 years later, because again we're still trying to heal what we went through, and yeah, we are. And people now, when storms are announced, people, including me, we additionally that we try to be a bit prepared. Now, people just go hysteric, but like for real hysteria of the trauma of being really scared to go through hunger again, or without gas, or being unable to communicate. So you will see the supermarkets just flooded more than usual, because usually they flood, they get flooded with people. But after the hurricane, it's just the first year actually after the hurricane, there was a storm announced and people were just going. I went to the supermarket to get water and it was gone. It was gone even before the storm was not even close to us, but we were so scared. Like, yeah, I understand why we reacted like that, because the government left us alone to die. So it's on us,
Exactly. That makes me think, obviously the infrastructure, let me back up. I was going to say the infrastructure differences between Puerto Rico and Alabama. Obviously there's a lot, like we have infrastructure here, but our infrastructure is so bad that we were also kind of left alone, like after the tornadoes, where like 50 plus tornadoes hit Alabama in 2011. And ever since then, and it like decimated Alabama. And ever since then, whenever there's chances of storms, and Alabama's turning into the state that has the most frequent tornadoes in the country. And now every time there's a storm, our supermarkets also flood, right? And there's this kind of panic that seems to happen. And to me, I feel like that's why this is so important to have conversations about, obviously these storms are going to keep hitting us as climate change continues to be a thing. So how do we move forward from that and instead be proactive and instead of reactive? But anyway, let's go back to Puerto Rico. I just wanted to throw that in there, that's very similar, and my stomach dropped when you said that.
Yeah, I can. I did not knew that, and we have lots to learn and regarding the Gulf South and what you all been through, yeah, definitely our stomachs just go. Yeah, I would like, one of my most personal stories about Hurricane Maria is that I was 6 days without knowing if my son was alive. So, and I guess still my eyes right now are full of tears. Like I won't speak more about it, but that was something that I went through. And it was horrible. It was obviously horrible because since we lost communications. But the thing is that we were proactive even on that circumstance. For example, my family and I, we chose a place because I was living in the capital city and they were living 1 hour from me. So we just chose a middle area that it was in the highway where we knew it wasn't gonna get flooded. Maybe the way to the highway, but not the highway per se. So we said, okay, if on 3 days, we don't, on the third day, we will try to get there at 4 p.m. I'm just making an example. I don't remember the exact time, but it was 3 days after that we went there. I went there for 4 days in a row, even though I did not saw them. And my mom actually arrived, but she arrived later than me because of flooding and all the hectic, and because we could not find gas. The gas crisis was very, very bad. So what we have done is that, many people now have electric generators, like gas. So it's a problem because last time there was a blackout 6 months ago. just because of lack of maintenance to our electric grid. Like all my neighbors had one of those gas generators on. It was like the smoke and the gas, and the noises. But, they have it because they need electricity. I don't have one. Many people have moved who have the availability to actually finance solar panels. They have done that. There is more mutual aid groups now that they did not existed before. Near me, there's not one yet, but there are like 3 or 4 all around the whole country, which is very little because our mountain region and our coast gets inaccessible because we are a land of water, like the biggest island of Puerto Rico, the biggest one. It has so many rivers and aquifers, and the sea there's been so much building around these areas that also makes many areas get flooded really quickly. So it gets complicated to move around when these things happen. So I feel like we have learned how to prepare a bit better,
Yeah, first of all, I am so sorry you went through that traumatic experience of not knowing where your son is. I am giving you such a huge hug through the screen right now. And whenever I see you next, I'm giving you a big old hug. I'm so glad. And listeners, the son's okay. He is actually going to school next week. So
he's fine. He was fine. He's fine. He's 11 years now. He's big.
And thankfully, y'all are okay. And so, Marisha, you jump in.
Yeah, so honestly, Nicole, you kind of just led us into our next question. So what are some lessons in other disasters since then that we can apply to both Puerto Rico and southern states? I guess you could just start us there.
You started talking... Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I mean, you started talking briefly about how mutual aid things started forming and you started depending on each other for electricity.
Yeah.
So how has Puerto Rico adapted since Maria? If you could talk more about that.
Yeah, like I mentioned, in some areas, mutual aid groups that happened after the hurricane, they have stayed together and now they are more structured and they have, for example, one that is in Caguas, that's very far away from my house, but they're amazing and they have solar panels in their area. They have and Caguas is really big too. It's a rural town, but still there's a place where people can actually go. And if something happens and being able to cook, being able to eat, being able to, I don't know, let's say breastfeeding persons can put their breast milk in the fridges because they have solar panels, things that maybe we don't think about if we're not actually parents, but a lot of people also struggle with their babies' food. I don't know if you knew, but in 2020, before the lockdown came everywhere of COVID-19, we had huge earthquakes on the south. And it was just horrible. I organized a group of doulas. I'm a doula too. All of a sudden the women in the south of our biggest island, they were without access to their doctors. And midwives were going down, but they were not enough because it was more than 8 or 9 towns, and I'm saying a few. More than 8 or 9 towns affected by it. So what we did is that, everyone who could moved. There were even traffic jams one day of so many people from other parts of our country trying to get there to get help, to give help to people. And it was just, we cried a lot when we saw that. And then I organized a bunch of doulas. We didn't even have good cars. I'm laughing because it was so funny. It was like, why am I organizing this? I don't even know how I'm going to get there. But we found who will take us. We found all the time, we found who will take us over there. And just trying to find pregnant women and or postpartum persons, not women, persons and see how we could actually help them and what they needed. But the thing is that everyone was more ready to actually share help on the earthquakes. Everyone who was not on the south, obviously, and you could see how our reaction was not even thinking about it, not even thinking if they actually need help or that's far from me, that's not my problem. That would have happened before the Hurricane Maria, actually. Like, not every time, but it would have happened. People might have said, that's too far from me, that's on the south, I'm not driving there. But on the earthquakes, it was like, no, everyone who can is gonna go down and is gonna go and help and bring water or food or supplies or medicines or anything. And actually, in those same dates, a independent reporter found how you call that, containers, like huge containers full of supplies that were supposed to be given to the people after Maria. And people, this went all through the news, and people just arrived there and opened by themselves the other containers. I can share this news with you. And just started taking things out to give it to the people who were affected by the earthquakes, because again, we found out that we were by ourselves. So now people, I think, that have been more interested also in learning or learning about having your own garden, learning more about even natural or alternative ways of healing, like physical healing. And I remember after Maria that the one of us who maybe people would have called us, I don't even know what they would have called us, because we knew about natural medicine or about gardening or about, agroecology specifically, and or childbirth. All of a sudden we were very needed, because we had, even though before people would look at us like the maybe the weird ones, now they were like, oh wait, we need all of your knowledge, because the system is actually just left us alone. So what do we do? How do I grow this or that food? So that's another shift that you have seen at least I have seen in people. And I guess, like, emotionally, even though we are just triggered quickly, constantly by many other things that happen here because of colonialism and all of that we've been through, I think there's also more spaces, cultural spaces, for people to get together, and healers going around the country, like doing acupuncture for free, and just trying to make spaces for people to just be there. It's not everywhere, obviously, but there are a bunch of groups, and I think I always speak about bomba. As a bomba musician, we are also part of that, like bringing bomba music and drumming to different areas, because it's also healing, and we know that people need healing. That before Hurricane Maria, when some of us will speak about healing, and people will be like, what are you talking about? Not everyone, but more people are open to it, and more people are trying to transform themselves emotionally. It's not only about, what do you have in material wise to survive these oncoming disasters that are gonna keep appearing, and as you all mentioned, are gonna get maybe worse because of climate change. Is how we actually get together and just support each other, and because our governments have showed us that they will respond to some privileged areas mostly, and then leave the rest of us all alone.
I got chills from thinking of the feminine power that has risen. Is rise grammatically correct? I don't know. Risen and has started to really take root in Puerto Rico. You're right, though. When it comes down to it, we need to heal. And we need, in order to face and deal with things, we have to heal each other. And that makes my heart so happy that that's starting to really take hold. And I hope and think that our communities on the mainland can learn from that. So that kind of touches on to the next part. I want to know what disaster resilience means to you and what does equitable recovery mean to you? Because it seems like you have experienced both. Well, not equitable. Y'all haven't gotten the opportunity to have equitable recovery, but you definitely know what it means to be resilient against disasters and like, yeah. So please enlighten us is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you again. As many other areas as I have learned, like we don't like the word resilience because they have abused the word.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, don't worry. Like and actually I learned this in Katrina 13 in New Orleans. Actually, I learned it from them. At that moment we still didn't spoke too much about it. So I was invited to talk about what happened to pregnant persons and postpartum persons after Hurricane Maria, and they taught me that. But the thing is that, and it's not the word, the problem is that how the powers, not the powers of the people, the other maybe government powers, and they have used the word, to manipulate it and just tell us, and I mean this in the whole Gulf South, not only in my country, and tell us like, yeah, you're so resilient, you can just keep taking more and more on and just just be there. And I'm trying to translate here something, but I can't. The thing is that
well, I mean, to me
it will be like disaster preparedness, which is our resilience.
Yes.
Yeah, again, like I mentioned, looks like getting ready earlier on the hurricane season. Also, getting our supplies earlier. Many people have that, not many, some people who have had access to solar panels and other type of electricity. Other ones just have the same generators I just mentioned, and more or less, I guess that's, that will be repetitive from myself, but that's more or less what you can actually see. Mm-hmm. What was the other question?
Yeah, so, well, it was like, first I asked, what does resilience for you? And I have learned that we need to scrap that out. See, people can be resilient, but powerful interests such as governments or corporations shouldn't be telling us that we're resilient, so we don't accidentally create excuses for
them to keep abusing and not actually reacting. Oh, you were talking about the recovery, equitable recovery.
Yeah, what is that? What would Puerto Rico look like if you equitably recovered? And like, what are some steps do you think Puerto Rico should take to recover?
Well, first of all, since we are under the board of control, since 2016 under the law called Promesa. And definitely there's cities in other states that have board of controls. And many people have, whenever I have spoken about this on the US, they have told me like, oh yeah, but Philadelphia has a board of control, or this other town has a board of control. And I'm like, yes, but we are a whole country under a big, bad, aggressive and abusive colonialism. So it's not the same for us. They actually are asphyxiating us. So the thing is that even though they're very similar, and yes, they have asphyxiated these cities too. It's not like I'm not trying to I'm not trying to make invisible what these cities have gone through. Like, it's also an abuse. It's also very unfair, and it's just horrible to pay debts with the wellness of people who are usually Black and brown people. So what they've done to us with the board of control is completely related to the equitable recovery, since even if we get federal funds constantly for different things, our annual budgets are moved to pay the debt. We have a huge debt as the U.S. government has a huge debt actually itself. So, but we have as a country a huge debt, and we've been asking for the past 6 years. Many of us, many people have asked for the debt to be verified, because we don't actually know why it's so much money. They have never ever wanted to give us a clear explanation, and so they're just responding to the corporations and the bond owners, and they're just paying them. So there cannot be an equitable recovery if we have this dictatorship board of control on top of us. Because even if the Senate and the House of Representatives, even if they decided to approve laws that will make our lives better, or to fix the streets or things like that, they will say, no, we need those millions to pay the debt. And actually, 2 or 3 days ago, they actually said that there was a approval of funds to fix the highways, because they haven't been fixed since Maria, and many bridges haven't been fixed. And the Board of Control said, no, that money is going to pay, I don't know what part of the debt. Yeah, I see your hand.
Yeah, is the Board of Controls on in the US, or is it in Puerto Rico? Because if it's in the US, we're going to start rounding folks up to talk about this, because this clearly needs to be dealt with. But if it's in Puerto Rico, I don't know how I can help, but I want to.
Well, the Board of Control it's assigned by the President of the United States, the President in turn, like the one, whoever is on right now. Or they can actually change it. They are actually in the US. They are not, they have their offices here. They have offices, but they only need to have 2 representatives that are actually Puerto Rican. And usually they're just Puerto Ricans who don't care about other Puerto Ricans. So it's not like they're, but they would be like, well, we have 2 Puerto Ricans in our group. And we're like, yeah, very rich Puerto Ricans who don't care about other people. They don't really care. So it's like, that doesn't mean anything to us. So even though they have local offices, they are based over there. We have since 2016, we've had a court process with Judge Swain as the judge of all of this. Actually, after Hurricane Maria, the governor we had, he was not a good, well, we even never had a good governor, but the governor we had, he asked her like, hey, I'm having an emergency here. A hurricane just came and everything is destroyed. And there was a court hearing next day about the debt. And she said, I don't care, I'm going on. I mean, I'm just paraphrasing, obviously, but they just said, we don't care. We're going to keep with the court hearing, even if your country is not being represented. So they're based in the US. They are, and they're chosen by the president, and we don't have any choice in it. So we have a bunch of people, white folks, very powerful folks choosing for us.
It sounds like we could start rounding up troops. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. We need to make this visible, and because we're over here just. They're Puerto Ricans organizing themselves over there, but they're fewer, Mm-hmm. So and again, they're just trying to survive usually as them. It's the same as everyone else, and not as everyone else, as many of us. I'm not everyone. But we need to, that's why I always try to speak about Promesa, because I know many people don't know that we have this on top of us. They're like, they took the money of the retirement they took the money of the public employees. Now they don't have rights for money to retire. Like, okay, so when you retire after 30 years of working for you, now you won't have money and you're going to be impoverished. So my mom is one example. My mom, she retired as a teacher, 30 years of service of deaf children. She was one of the few teachers who had a specialty of deaf kids, and and she's now with the Medicaid, like the government health plan, which it's not something bad because I used to have it too, but like she used to have this quality, this type of life, and now she's impoverished, and she's actually has another job because she couldn't actually retire because they just cut the funds, and that could keep on going, but they just went crazy with it just to pay the debt that we don't know what it's actually about. It's mostly corruption. That's our problem with it. That is just mostly corruption and corruption on top of corruption.
So what I'm hearing is that, for one, the Gulf states need to help advocate to deal with this board. For two, we need to work together to fix the systemic issues. And three, Puerto Ricans are going to continue building strong community ties to survive, regardless. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, definitely. We need people to understand how deep is colonialism on us, and that could be just I could talk a lot about it, and how they are actually just displacing us, because more people are leaving the country. They left a lot of people left after Maria, and then now a lot of people have left again because of economic reasons, and they're just trying to take over our beautiful country and our beautiful lands and resources, because we are, like I mentioned, we have lots of water too. So yeah, and they're just trying that now. Like my partner and I, many of us, we say that only staying here in this country is an act of resistance. That's how hard it is to live over here.
It sounds like there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like, Abby. So Nicole, real quick, before we end out the show, we have one question that we like to ask all of our guests, and it's just like, what gives you hope to keep going, to keep fighting in this movement and in this environmental justice movement? What gives you hope?
Well, hope, let's see. And thank you, that's a good question. I think that the way we have transformed ourselves in terms of being more vulnerable, being more empathetic, being more, I can even say humane, definitely that gives me hope, because I've seen how we've become again, and we had this already, but now it's like again more present, because as Caribbean people and people that live in islands, like we cannot live this. There's just water around us, so we cannot actually live. We have to help each other. We cannot jump us from state to state, so we have no choice but to get together and just help each other. You even see people even me, we've had differences in the past because maybe political reasons or weird reasons, and we just stay in the same place and try to work together. I mean, it's not everyone, obviously. We're still have lots to do, but that gives me hope. Definitely my son, the children, and the children's that we were not even able to have, because again, since impoverishment is so aggressive, many of us only have like one children because we cannot afford to have more children. But the ones that are here that deserve so much better, our children deserve so much better. So they actually give us hope too. And definitely all the opportunities that through the work I'm starting to do, all these opportunities to actually share what's happening here and also learn from what has happened over there and see how they actually replicate this to many of our locations, and it just gets me rage first, and then it just gives me hope because I learned also from y'all. So that type of networking has been very, very powerful, and I know more can be done through that. So I think like I said, since he said it's an act of resistance to stay in my country, that also gives me hope, finding ways to stay here and keep fighting for our freedom, and just to being able to live in this beautiful, beautiful small country.